Greetings YouTube, the author Mark Simmons here, back for the 10th instalment of my readings from the Psionic Powers Trilogy. In this episode I will be reading a snippet from chapter 2 of my second novel, Purged in Flame. In the story so far, the protagonist and other members of the group have made it back to the Manse and are regrouping after the fighting from the night before, basically. Purged in Flame is available on Amazon via Poe Boy Publishing. As always, I've not rehearsed this, so we'll see how it goes. So this is an extract from chapter 2, which is called Recuperation. They all fell over the threshold and landed in a pile as the door shut behind them. "You're in," Cook stated as he stepped away from the mound of people. "Now cut out all the yelling, or I'll be forced to end you all right here on the Portuguese memorial." The short doorman wore his customary black t-shirt, black jeans and black trainers. He pushed his thin-rimmed glasses up onto the bridge of his nose and stared down at the pile of people with a look of annoyance. Whitfield returned the stare with his own perplexed look. He had been told that Cook was a very troubled individual who suffered from multiple personality disorder. They had met on 2 or 3 occasions, and each time he had been faced with a different person. This mildly aggressive character was someone new again. "Who are we talking to today?" Whitfield wondered. "I'm offended that you would even ask that question," Cook stated. Khadir gave the remark little regard, as she clearly thought it was just another of his idiosyncrasies finding its way out. But Whitfield knew that the comment was aimed at him. It was not the first time that Cook had responded to something Whitfield had said in his head. He wanted to write these experiences off as the madness that riddled the poor man. Yet some of what he had seen, and the things that he thought he had done throughout the previous evening, made him wonder whether it was he who was going mad. An explosion had ripped through the theatre that these immortals called their assembly hall. Shards of wood and shattered bone had been sent towards him. As the fragments had hurtled his way, he had wished, or it had been hoped that they would miss him, but they hadn't. Instead, they had frozen in mid-air half a yard in front of him. The blast wave had quickly knocked Whitfield off his feet, taking with him the debris that hung in the air, and the event from his memory. But now that it had returned, had it been his will alone that had held it there, or was it just his mind playing tricks on him? Khadir got to her feet and offered her hand to the young woman on the floor next to Whitfield. "We haven't been formally introduced," Khadir said to the teenager as she helped her to her feet. "I'm Khadir, this is Cook and Whitfield." She smiled meekly up at the mountain of a woman as she struggled to speak. "Where I come from, it's rude not to introduce yourself to someone that has announced themselves." Whitfield could see that she was terrified. "It's okay," he said. "We're all friends here." A glance up at Khadir, however, made him doubt his own words. "Well, some of us." "I'm Whitfield, by the way." He held out his hand to her, which she took and looked into his eyes. Whitfield could never remember seeing adulation form in a person, but as she gazed up at him, he knew that he was witnessing such a thing. As she stared longingly at him, her name crept from her lips. "Esther." "Pleased to meet you, Esther." He shook her hand and looked away from her adoring gaze. "So what do we do now?" Whitfield asked Khadir. Now, Khadir looked Esther over and seemed happy that she was unharmed and turned her attention to Whitfield. "Now we wait for their second wave." "What will that entail?" "More of the same, I would imagine. But for what purpose?" "Someone's making a move for the city," a new voice called from the lounge area to their left. Eddie Lament leant against the frame of the lounge door, holding a bottle of the Manse's house wine in his hands, whilst he beamed from ear to ear at their arrival. "Greetings." Eddie wasn't the face Whitfield would have expected to see, particularly inside the Manse. Last time Whitfield had seen him was in the warehouse where the army of hooded creatures that now stalked the streets had been created. a warehouse that was being used for the farming of human blood, no less. Why was he here? He wore the same tattered black vest, stained brown jeans, and black stiletto-heeled boots. Lee had taken it upon himself to let the man go, and Whitfield had presumed that they would never see him again. How did you get in here? Khadir took a challenging step forward and reached up behind her back for her blade. Whoa, calm down, lady, it's all cool. Eddie held up his hands, the liquid in the bottle slurping around from the action. Cook let me in, he added as he pointed the bottle towards the troubled doorman. Did he now? Khadir replied and glanced into the small man's direction, her hand still on the hilt of her weapon. Why would you do that? She asked Cook. Master Taylor once told me that all are welcome in this house. Cook stood defiant. Khadir couldn't hide her annoyance, but her hand dropped back to her side. And why are you actually here? She asked Eddie. You've been out there, right? Eddie's face quickly went from smiles to open fear. It's bedlam. I've got nowhere to go. You wasted the only people I knew in this city, he pointed at Khadir. Other than Lee, I don't know anyone. I was told this place is supposed to be some kind of safe haven. Eddie looked at Khadir pleadingly. I have already had a room set up for him, Cook added. You have got to be kidding. Khadir turned to Cook and glared down at him. Do you actually know this man? I mean, really know him? Take it up with Mr. Taylor. Cook stated and then walked away from them. Eddie just smiled back at her in an unassuming way. That I will, Khadir called to Cook's back before stepping closer to Eddie. You will wait here until I come back. Eddie continued to smile at her, took 2 steps back, and then sat on the nearest sofa. You two, come with me. Khadir pointed at Whitfield and Esther. Khadir led them down a short corridor into the kitchen, whilst muttering curses under her breath. At the back of the kitchen was a small flight of stairs down to a metal door. It weighed 3 times that of Khadir, but she opened it with one shove of her shoulder. 3 further steps brought them down into a small wooden balcony. It sat on the top corner of a large 3-story cellar. The balcony became a staircase to the right that wound down along 2 sides of the room. Multiple holes lined the walls, and Whitfield presumed that at one point they had been resting places for the dead. The bodies had been removed, and now each tomb had been filled in with brickwork. The steps ended amongst row upon row of wine bottles that took up all of the floor space. Are you hungry? Khadir asked as they neared the bottom step. Whitfield pondered the question. He felt no pangs of hunger, nor any desire to eat. I'm fine, thanks, he tiredly replied in Portuguese. I doubt that very much, she replied in their native tongue, as she pulled 2 bottles from the closest rack. I think English would be the best for our new guest. And besides, it wasn't just aimed at you, nor was it a request. Drink this. He took the bottle off her, unscrewed the cap, and took a drink. She handed the other bottle to Esther. All of it, Khadir added as she consumed the content of her own bottle in 5 deep gulps. Whitfield felt that he didn't need any sustenance, but as the liquid worked its way into his digestive system, his body told him otherwise. The tension in his body waned away. He felt the most relaxed he had in a number of hours. However, he was sure there had been no need to drink. Maybe Khadir had been wrong. A heavy thump reverberated off the walls, off the tall ceiling, and stopped Whitfield mid-drink. Esther jumped, and the bottle fell from her grasp, shattering on the floor. Another bang followed it, with a third close behind. Khadir slid her empty bottle back into the rack and drew her weapon. Get rid of that, she said to Whitfield, and moved over to another steps that went down to a lower level of the building. There you go. Just a little dialogue-heavy one there. So Purged in Flame, available on Amazon via Poe Boy Publishing. The links will be in the body of this article, along with my Twitter page, my Instagram page, my Facebook author page, Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you didn't like it. All contributions are appreciated. So, yeah, I will see you next time.